Joseph's journey from betrayal to power is one of the greatest comeback stories in history. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned, yet he rose to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. Through him, countless lives were saved, including the very brothers who betrayed him. But what if Joseph never rose to power? What if Pharaoh never had his dream? What if Joseph rotted away in prison, forgotten and hopeless? What if the famine came, and there was no one to save the world from starvation? Would Egypt survive? Would Israel even exist? This is the terrifying alternate reality of what if Joseph never became the prime minister of Egypt. Joseph, the beloved son of Jacob, had a gift. He could see the future in dreams, but his dreams made his brothers jealous. They saw him as a threat, and so, one fateful day, they threw him into a pit and sold him to slave traders heading for Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, a high-ranking official. Through his wisdom and integrity, he earned his master's trust and was put in charge of the entire household. But soon, trouble came. Potiphar's wife falsely accused him, and Joseph was thrown into prison. Yet even in prison, he remained faithful. He interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, accurately predicting their futures. The cupbearer, restored to his position, promised to remember Joseph, but he forgot. 2 years passed. Then Pharaoh had a troubling dream. 7 fat cows devoured by 7 thin cows. 7 healthy heads of grain swallowed by 7 withered ones. No one in Egypt could interpret it. But at that moment, the cupbearer finally remembered Joseph. Joseph stood before Pharaoh declaring, "The dreams mean there will be 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of severe famine." He advised Pharaoh to store grain during the good years. Seeing his wisdom, Pharaoh made Joseph second in command over all of Egypt. During the famine, Joseph's own brothers came to Egypt seeking food. They did not recognize him, but he recognized them. After testing them, he revealed himself, weeping, saying, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." Joseph saved Egypt. He saved his family, and through him, the nation of Israel survived. But what if things happened differently? Imagine, Joseph interprets the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker. The cupbearer is restored to Pharaoh's service. But this time, he forgets Joseph permanently. The years pass. Joseph's hope fades. His faith wavers. Days in the prison turn into years, and the once hopeful young man begins to break. Pharaoh still has his dream, but this time, he does not search for an answer. His magicians give him false interpretations. Egypt, confident in its own strength, does nothing. And then, the famine comes. The first year of famine is difficult. Crops fail, and food supplies dwindle. But Pharaoh's officials assure the people, this is temporary. Egypt is strong. The second year of famine arrives. The Nile recedes unusually low, storehouses empty. The people begin to panic. By the third year, desperation fills the land. The rich hoard food, the poor die in the streets. By the fourth year, chaos erupts. Bandits roam the countryside, soldiers abandon their posts. The mighty Egypt, once the greatest empire in the world, is crumbling. Far away, in Canaan, Jacob's family is suffering. Reuben, the eldest, watches his younger brothers starve. Benjamin, the youngest, is too weak to walk. Their mother, Leah, weeps in silence. "Father," Judah pleads, "we must find food." But there is nowhere to go, because in this reality, Egypt is not a place of refuge. There is no grain, no salvation, no Joseph to save them. One by one, they perish. The covenant God made with Abraham to make his descendants a great nation never comes to pass. Israel never exists, and the very lineage through which the Messiah was meant to come is gone. But this is not how the story ends, because Joseph did become prime minister. He was not forgotten. He was not forsaken. His suffering had a purpose. His years in prison were not wasted. God used the pain, the betrayal, the rejection to position him for greatness. And maybe that's the lesson for us today. Perhaps you feel forgotten. Perhaps you feel like your prayers are unheard. But Joseph's story reminds us that even when it seems like God is silent, he is working behind the scenes. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. Your story is not over yet. If Joseph had given up in prison, if he had lost faith, if he had succumbed to despair, the entire course of history would have changed. So don't give up, because like Joseph, your greatest breakthrough may be just on the other side of your darkest moment. Did this what if story challenge you? What do you think would have happened if Joseph had never risen to power? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And remember, history could have been very different. What if Egypt never recovered from the Great Famine? Imagine a world where Egypt never recovers from the famine. Imagine an empire that once ruled the world, falling into ruin, overthrown, and forgotten. Who would rise in its place? Would another nation seize control? Would the future of history change forever? The famine did not last forever. After 7 years, the rains returned, the Nile swelled once more, and the land, slowly, began to heal. But Egypt could not recover. Too much was lost. Too many had died. The people no longer trusted Pharaoh. The streets were empty. Fields lay barren, stripped by years of desperation. The once mighty granaries, once the symbol of Egypt's strength, now stood as hollow shells, broken and abandoned. There was no rebuilding, no return to power. And in the shadows, new forces prepared to rise. Without Egypt's rule, the balance of power shifted. To the east, the Babylonians watched with interest. To the north, the Hittites began expanding. To the south, the Cushites, once controlled by Egypt, now saw a chance for revenge. And in Canaan, where Jacob's family had perished, other tribes moved in. The land once meant for Israel fell under foreign control. The divine plan, once set in motion, was erased from history. A new nation rose, one that did not worship the God of Abraham, one that did not follow the laws of Moses, one that would shape the world in ways we cannot even imagine. A traveler from Babylon arrives in what was once the grand city of Thebes. He walks through the ruins, past the once glorious temples. Statues of pharaohs stand cracked, their faces eroded by time. Silence reigns where once there was music. A single priest remains at the temple, whispering prayers to gods that no longer answer. "Where is Egypt's power?" the traveler asks. The priest does not reply, because he knows the truth. Egypt is no more. Without Egypt's influence, the course of history is forever altered. There is no pharaoh to challenge Moses. There is no great exodus. There is no parting of the Red Sea. The story of Israel is never told. The 10 Commandments never shape civilization. The Promised Land is never claimed. And in a distant future, the world we know today is unrecognizable. A world without Egypt. A world without Israel. A world where history itself has been rewritten. We often see history as inevitable. But in reality, one small change could alter everything. Joseph's rise to power didn't just save Egypt. It preserved the destiny of an entire people. And perhaps in our own lives, we too are facing moments where everything feels lost. But what if, like Joseph, we are being prepared for something greater? The famine was not the end of Egypt. The prison was not the end of Joseph. And your struggles are not the end of your story. History could have been different, but so could your future. What do you think? Could history have survived without Egypt? Could a world without Israel still have found its way to God? Let's talk in the comments. If this story made you think, imagine what's coming next. There are so many untold possibilities in the Bible, and we're just getting started. So don't miss out. Hit that like button, subscribe to Biblical What Ifs, and turn on the notification bell. Because the next what if might just change everything you thought you knew.